So we'll just start with an introduction. Who are you? Who am I interviewing?
My name is Nick Socias. I'm currently an assistant district attorney at the Bexar County Criminal District Attorney's Office. I've been doing that for about a year and a half. I'm in the criminal trial division. Pretty much my caseload is that I personally handle are aggravated felonies, organized crime, certain gun cases, things like that, drug trafficking.
Okay, thank
Murders.
Left that one towards the end.
Yeah.
So what did you do? You said you only did this for like a year and a half. What did you do prior?
I came from Harris County. I was an intern, and I was sworn in 2011. So I was there from 2011 to 2016, the end of 2016. So December 31st, 2016, started January 2017 in Bexar County. So when I was in Houston, or Harris County, you kind of worked through, I did misdemeanors, all misdemeanor assaults, misdemeanor drug cases, moved up to felony, lower level drug cases. And then after I did my time in felony, and then basically we have a number system. So there's a chief of a court, a number 2 prosecutor, and then a number 3 prosecutor. So I moved up from 3 to 2, and then I was allowed to pick my assignment. And I've always wanted to go into child abuse. We call it child abuse, child exploitation. So then I did that division for a few years, and then moved on out back into what we call the trial bureau of just general felony offenses.
Okay, so in all that time, do you have an opinion on something like Miss Butler's case and what happened to her?
When you get into scientific evidence like that, and even now we know it's really changing, especially with experts. I feel like it's more crazy now when we hear about how quick it is to overturn what's always been considered the norm. So I can't, in child abuse, I have experts who will tell me this is a standard. It goes, this type of behavior goes with this type of action, goes with this. And every prosecutor is going to accept that as being, this is our expert. He is the leader. I mean, this comes from really good people. It's kind of crazy to think, that 20 years from now we could be totally wrong. So stuff like that is scary, and especially with those infant cases have gotten, so different in the shaken baby cases, all the infant death cases and baby death cases have changed so much that it's pretty scary. So
yeah. So how many cases are cases like Miss Butler's kind of common in the fact that she was later exonerated? Or not kind of common, they're really uncommon, but have you seen any like it that where it was something kind of...
No, I normally keep up with the exonerations. Most of the ones I see are DNA. I've seen bite mark. A bite mark is another kind of good expert field. We have convicted people off bite marks, and then stuff has changed, and I can't get you the technical details on why identifying a bite mark on someone has somehow changed so much, where we could at one point included some person and then later totally excluded that person. But I've cases of reversal and exoneration on bite marks. So the sciences, especially the new sciences, are dangerous, I guess is the best way to put it. Or you should be looked at with caution. I would be very cautious to rely an entire conviction on, at this point, bite mark evidence, kind of the newer, less tested forms of forensic science.
Okay.
Would you consider the shaken baby or newer form of evidence?
And again, it's weird to think that, because I've gone to the training, I've never tried a shaken baby case. I think I've tried one with another person, and it wasn't a shaken baby case. I think the argument was SIDS, but I feel like where they're at now is pretty good. I feel like when I listen to these people talk and they do the demonstrations, I feel like the science is there. But again, basing something off of a new science. It's like, a new drug or a new something, a lot of research needs to be done, and things change.
Mm-hmm. So, what is your personal opinion on some of the inequalities within the system? Because I know I'm specifically looking into how cases like this specifically hurt women in their convictions.
So in general, or you think in this type of, well, I'll give you inequalities. And you're focusing more on kind of the women aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the big things I think that our justice system hasn't really understood, and there's absolutely no consistency amongst prosecutors, let alone amongst offices and counties, and is the assault family member cases.
Mm-hmm.
Harris County had a no drop policy, so if a woman came forward and made an allegation of domestic violence against whoever, and family member, spouse, significant other, whatever, it was a no drop policy. So if we believe that case, we go forward regardless of what the I'll say female because that was mostly it, but regardless of what the victim said in that domestic violence case, we would go forward if we believe the evidence was there. Very frequently the victim would testify against us in those cases.
Mm-hmm.
Bexar County does not have that policy. We drop a lot of cases, and I think that kind of it's a big hurdle to overcome because we're not really understanding the whole dynamics behind some of this stuff. And so I don't know if that's kind of what you're looking for, but I think that's a big problem, is a lack of education for prosecutors on family violence cases in general.
What about if you hear, if you're trying a female defendant for a crime versus trying a male defendant for a crime, and specifically a violent crime? Do you tend to see more juror bias against a female defendant in a violent crime when you watch versus seeing that in a male violent crime?
It is hard. If I'm going up against a female defendant, I'm honestly more worried about how the jury is going to perceive it. It is just and basically I do the jury selection, we have our trial, and then I always like to talk to the jury afterwards. And then they're really good they'll talk with me, and then I give them my cards and I say, look, please give me feedback, tell me what you think. And a lot of them will interact, and I think that's the best gauge. I think jury trials are the best gauge to actually see what the community really feels about your facts, because we're kind of isolated in our bubble, and we talk to other prosecutors. My wife's a prosecutor, so I bounce things. So it's really isolated in our own little world. When we finally get a jury, we hear what the community wants to hear. And it's always very difficult. And they try and couch it in other terms besides she was a woman, but it's hard for them to imagine a woman doing a very heinous, violent crime. Mm-hmm. It's hard for them to believe that a woman can sexually assault a child. I want to say, one of my most horrific child sexual assault cases involved was a woman that was doing it. It was even a shock for me reading that case. For whatever my internal bias is about it, I said, I can't. It's almost always men. To see a woman doing something like this, it's just a whole another level of not really being able to understand it. Mm-hmm. So it's very difficult. And I know picking a jury is going to be difficult because they're just going to be like, I don't see it. Men especially, are going to have a problem with seeing a woman doing a violent crime. There was a case recently, I'm trying to think of a really good one besides this one, but if you start involving, I'll get a little graphic, but dismembering bodies or something more than just a sudden passion stabbing or shooting, if you start getting into cold, calculated murder or something after the fact, like burning or dismembering or anything, they don't seem to be able to wrap their mind around it.
Mm-hmm. Do you find that the jurors then are less likely to find the female guilty or more likely to find the female guilty? Does the bias work against the guilt or more in favor of the guilt?
In my experience, it is their bias is in favor of not guilty, of
Mm-hmm.
of walking the woman and finding her innocent.
Mm-hmm.
I want to, on the flip side, on the conviction I have got on a female, that was a first offender. They gave her a life sentence. So take that for maybe once the shock. The evidence was overwhelming in this case, and I don't know if you want me to get into facts. It was really sad and gruesome, but the jury came back very fast with life. Nothing to do with me being an awesome attorney. It had to do with her being a terrible person, and all the facts came out. But that was a very harsh punishment. So there might be something to it that once they get over that hurdle, it's still such a shock to them that they're just like, no, like you just kind of blew my mind. So life it is for you.
Yeah. So one of the things, I previously interviewed the head of the Georgia Innocence Project last week, and one of the things she was most surprised about in talking about Miss Butler's case was that she was given a death sentence for it. Is that something that you would be surprised to hear about, or something that you would think would be more common?
I would be surprised, especially what year was it decided? Do you remember?
Late 90s.
Okay.
That's different.
I mean, they were handing them out a little better, or a little. I should say they were handing them out a little more then. Now it is. Now it is super rare.
Yeah.
Even in when I was in Harris County, which was like the death sentence capital of I think the nation at the time. When I was there, it was not on every case. You better have some egregious facts and a whole bunch of future danger proof and all this other stuff. So I'm in a kind of a different generation where death penalty is considered very rare to me. But if you talk to another prosecutor who tried cases in the 80s and 90s, they were knocking those out left and right.
Death at that time penalty was a lot more.
I mean, that's when you're seeing so I get a criminal history sheet and I'll see, 40 years on and they actually called it like possession of crack. And now it's just possession of controlled substance. But that's when you're seeing just crazy numbers come down. Now, what a case was worth 40 then is a 2 or 3 now. So it's, when you think of it, the different proportions and the different time frame, it's pretty crazy.
Okay. So I guess that kind of, now getting out of all of the Butler cases and some of the stuff, but that was specific to my project and into, again, the more general stuff, if you could change something about your profession and what you do, what would you?
It would have to be more education. Everyone talks about the trainings, but you get kind of jaded to the whole thing. And it works both ways. Like defense has to deal with their client, their family. We on our side deal with the victims and their family. There's a whole lot of, after, if you see just nonstop the same thing over and over again, you start looking at it really formulaic. You have to kind of bring life back into it. You really have to kind of remember the victims. And in a lot of these offices, we are so isolated from the victims that we kind of lose touch with that, and we just look at it as kind of filling the blocks. I don't see, I should say I don't, because it's a little different for me, but say I call the threes, but some of the younger prosecutors that I help out and I monitor, they have serious cases, assault family member seconds, things like that. They will never actually see this victim face to face until right before trial. So we work out a huge amount of cases and pleas. It just, you lose touch with the human element on our side. And I think that's one of the things that's unfortunate, is because defense has that human element always there. They're looking their client in the eye, they're talking with them, they're getting the whole life story. Whereas our victim, we're like, okay, just give me the real quick facts. I got 100 of these. I got to knock it out. It's more of a triage on our side. I don't know exactly how to solve the caseload problem, but I think we need more training and more programs to deal with kind of the victim side of it and bring it all around.
Okay, thank you.